Hey guys, it's Delora Davos here, and I just wanted to give like a brief talk about the winter storm or Arctic blast, whatever it is that they're calling it, that happened here in Houston last week. So, honestly, I didn't realize how bad it was until I left the house about 3 days in to go get more supplies, more food and stuff, and water, because we kept hearing that people's water was getting shut off. The water pressure had gone down significantly in my apartment, and yeah, I needed to get more water. So we ended up going to the HEB close to my house in Montrose, and it was the only one that was open, and like they didn't have electricity. That whole area of Montrose didn't have electricity. This is the HEB I lived like 2 blocks away from, and none of the stoplights around there were even on. They weren't even flashing red. They weren't even on. And so like I know that like if I'd stayed at my old apartment, I would have not had power that whole time. um Kind of really glad that I moved to the new place. But anyway, they had, I guess, at least enough power or generators to keep certain things on. So, like the cash registers were on, but there weren't lights on inside of the HEB. All the lights were off. Like they were really conserving whatever generator, whatever they had going on. Right. And they were only letting people in like little bit at a time, like the line wrapped around the building. So I ended up talking to the person behind me quite a bit, and she was from Pearland, and her electricity had been out for like days. So like her younger kids just they all just stayed in bed until they couldn't handle it anymore, and they came and stayed with, I guess, her older daughter, who lived up here in like the Montrose area. I live closer to Allen Parkway, and it's more of an affluent neighborhood, and we never lost power the whole time. We didn't lose power. um so whenever the electric company, right, is saying that like they had to do rolling blackouts across Houston to preserve the grid, why were some neighborhoods completely blacked out and other neighborhoods never lost power? If you were doing rolling blackouts, that implies that, okay, I lose power for a few hours, they get power for a few hours, we swap. I don't have power, but they have power. And then the next person behind us has power. And then eventually it gets back to me and I have electricity again. That's what a rolling blackout implies in the context that they were saying. Like, oh, we need to cut everyone's power for a few hours or whatever to preserve the entire grid. Yet, how come there is this persistent pattern that people in affluent neighborhoods never lost power, and people in, the working poor neighborhoods lost power completely for days, right? So that's kind of where a lot of the outrage is coming from right now, and why so many people are demanding answers, because there are people who are living in these areas who have medical issues and their oxygen tanks didn't work anymore, like their CPAPs or whatever didn't work anymore. And like I know that like several people died that way. There was a child who died of hypothermia. There was a family who burned to death in their house trying to keep themselves warm, and there were so many carbon monoxide poisonings from people trying to keep themselves warm. Like, this was serious shit. And it also begs the question, like, okay, these politicians and people in power, right, who deregulated our electrical grid, and it's always been that way. It's always been that way. But to deregulate it and put it in the hands of a private corporation with no oversight on that corporation to save money. Who's saving money? We're not the ones saving money. They're the ones saving money. We're the one losing our lives the minute a catastrophe happens, right? Because those people who have power, the electricity in this case, right? They're deciding who lives and who dies in a catastrophe like this. They're deciding which neighborhoods get electricity and which neighborhoods don't. In effect, you're deciding who lives and who dies in a catastrophe, especially considering that our temperatures went as low as 12 degrees Fahrenheit. 12 degrees, that's enough to die of exposure. And I mean, don't even get me started in Dallas. Someone was walking down the street and there was a homeless woman just dead. Hypothermia, just dead on the street. Like, it's terrible. And this really does need to be addressed, not just because, oh, a few people died. No, it's the bigger question of the minute shit hits the fan, these people who have political power are the ones deciding who lives and who dies. And that's not something that the media is talking about when they're talking about, like, oh, and Texans are outraged and they want answers. It's like, okay, tell the rest of the world and the rest of the country why we want answers, because nothing's adding up. Again, if we were having a rolling blackouts to preserve the grid, I should have lost power at some point. This person I was talking to at the bar should have lost power at some point in River Oaks, right? How come these very affluent neighborhoods never lost power? Right? And some of your poorer neighborhoods lost power for days. The implication, I'm just beating a dead horse here, but you guys get it. So yeah, back to your regularly scheduled program. This was an update on why we're so pissed here in Texas at our system right now. Some people still don't have water, so I'm very thankful that though my water was cut off for a couple of days, I have water again, which is great. And there are some areas of Texas that still don't have water. So yeah, always something to be grateful for. And until next time, happy dabbling and bye-bye.